All right, going to be doing some work on this Ibis 2018 Ripley LS. Gonna be checking out some stuff as I'm going along. So something that caught my eye because I'm in the repair stand. I get to spin the wheel and then I get to hit the brake pretty hard. And I kind of hear a bunch of extra noise. Maybe it's just vibration or echoing through the frame, through the wheels and all that stuff. Might be nothing. I was able to hold the rear brake tight, and I was checking to see if I have a loose rotor, grabbing the rotor from the outside. Rotor seems tight, caliper is not wiggling, that's tight. Also, we can check our through axle, make sure that's tight, that's good. So by holding the brake, rear brake real tight, I'm gonna rotate this wheel, or try to rotate it forwards, backwards. I'm getting just the slightest amount of movement. I can see the wheel wants to move. So now I want to determine is it maybe the rotor, because it's the Shimano style with the spline, uses a lock ring. Is that loose? Or is it just the brake pads shifting forwards and backwards, whether it's 1 or 2 millimeters? Might be normal, but something that's catching my eye, so we'll check that out. These through axles, they should not be very tight. You're generally going to be around 10 Newton meters, which is maybe 3 or 4 Newton meters tighter than you would tighten your cable pinch bolt for your derailleur or brake. So that's not bad there. Remember, you can always clean this through axle up, wipe it down, give it a real thin coating of grease. Turn off your clutch if you have a Shimano. That's that on-off switch. Turn it to the opposition. It's going to allow you to move that derailleur a little bit easier. And then we're going to take a look at this rotor. So this is a Shimano. It's an Ice Tech. So with these two, while you're here too, you could always check the thickness of your rotor. I think if you reach the minimum of 1.5 millimeter thickness or less, then it's time to replace it. Here I show a little bit of scraping, right there on these edges here. So that's not the braking surface. It's actually the rotors are running a little too tight to the caliper itself. Got a little scraping on the caliper. Probably really hard to hear that, but that's something different. So see here for these lock rings, this is the spline style rotor. I'm going to use the same tool we use for our cassettes. This is the FR5. If it's an FR5G, it's got this little pin here. And then we got the other style that's for the through axle, which is a 12 millimeter. This is a FRG T probably for through axle. So we're gonna match up the teeth. Pretty common. We got today's bikes, we're using either a through axle style or a non-through axle style. Then we're just gonna loosen this guy up. Don't need a chain whip or anything. I'm gonna use a crescent wrench. Lie this guy flat. Careful not to touch the rotor. And a little bit loose. I don't think that was 40 Newton meters, maybe 25 if that, but we're going to take that off. So basically same thing, got a lock ring. This guy comes off, probably can't see that, but all these are basically splined on the rotor or on the hub. Everything looks pretty normal here. These can go on any direction as long as they fit. So it was a little bit loose. Also, this style of rotor, it's actually a 2-piece with rivets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rivets. Non-adjustable. So sometimes these rivets may get a little loose over time. So then we have this outer piece moving separately from the inner piece. But in this case, I think everything's fine here. It goes on in one direction. The riding is always facing us. Get that lock ring back on. I'm not going to put any grease. I don't think it's necessary. Haven't ran into that issue. Haven't heard of any horror stories. Tighten that up hand tight. Always start your bolts or threads by finger. Get that started, then you can come back with your tool. If you're good, then you can get it close to 40 Newton meters. I'm gonna just snug it up, but since I have a torque wrench, when in France, drink rainwater, right? And set this guy up. And we're going to 40. You can do this on the ground. You can get better leverage standing the wheel up. And you got to be careful with this because you get a bump notch, and we got to pay attention to when this torque wrench pivots, and actually it lets off a very faint click, so we can easily confuse that with the notches on the lock ring. When in doubt, go slow, and I just heard a little minor click. Release tension, apply light tension, and you want to make that head pivot again, 1, 2, 3, just to verify. So I did hit 40, so 40 didn't seem that tight. That's why I recommend doing the torque wrench, because a lot of times you're over tightening stuff and don't even know it. So other than that, we can inspect the wheel some more. I'm just going to drag my fingers, you know, kind of heavy on these spokes. Careful, these are bladed spokes, but making sure nothing's loose or broken. Sometimes you can ride with a broken spoke and not even know it. A lot of times the wheel will still stay true as long as you don't hit anything too hard. And since we're here, give this cassette a little side shake. There's always the slightest movement on these, probably just the hub. In most cases it's you're okay. We're going to go ahead and check the torque since we're here. Same tool, FR5T as in Tom, or T as in through axle, and then we're going to tighten this guy up. Again, real gentle, we're just looking for that little click. Yep, there it is. When you're done with these, go ahead and unwind them, set them back to 0 so we don't fatigue the spring. Oh, that's looking good. Take a look at your wheel. Sidewall's looking good, no tears or potential holes or rips. Tire tread looks in good shape. Wow. Everything else looks pretty good. I mean, you can stick it on the touring wheel, see if it's if it needs any trimming or straightening. I think overall this is good.